acres of land sold to Chinese nationals has made Oklahoma the hub for human trafficking, the indoctrination of our children in critical race theory, sexual immorality, and abortion on demand. And finally, the unconstitutional and illegal vaccine mandate, leaving hundreds of thousands of our legal and law-abiding citizens jobless. Enough is enough, and the political theater must stop. We must have a governor who's willing to lead legislators and Oklahomans to fight back against this tyranny and aggressively address these issues head-on. As the next governor of the state of Oklahoma, I will, in the first 100 days, initiate a forensic audit with canvases to ensure election integrity, secure Oklahoma's borders, stop all state funding to school districts who train or teach CRT to faculty, staff, or students, and end all abortions. Oklahoma, let's put our faith back in God, believe that nothing is impossible, and make Oklahoma free again. Oklahoma is my home. This is where I was born and raised. It was here where I was given a chance at life, being conceived after my mother was violated at the age of 16. This is where I received my education and learned with hard work, discipline, and courage anything was possible. But things have changed. This is not the Oklahoma I remember. Over the last several years, I've seen fear, chaos, and division tear this nation apart through the efforts of communists and the apathy of Republicans in name only, who are either incapable or unwilling to do whatever it takes to protect our God-given rights. Election fraud, open borders, riots, unvetted Afghan refugees, and 300,000 plus acres of land sold to Chinese nationals has made Oklahoma the hub for human trafficking, the indoctrination of our children in critical race theory, sexual immorality, and abortion on demand. And finally, the unconstitutional and illegal vaccine mandate, leaving hundreds of thousands of our legal and law-abiding citizens jobless. Enough is enough, and the political theater must stop. We must have a governor who's willing to lead legislators and Oklahomans to fight back against this tyranny and aggressively address these issues head-on. As the next governor of the state of Oklahoma, I will, in the first 100 days, initiate a forensic audit with canvases to ensure election integrity, secure Oklahoma's borders, stop all state funding to school districts who train or teach CRT to faculty, staff, or students, and end all abortions. Oklahoma, let's put our faith back in God, believe that nothing is impossible, and make Oklahoma free again. Oklahoma is my home. This is where I was born and raised. It was here where I was given a chance at life, being conceived after my mother was violated at the age of 16. This is where I received my education and learned with hard work, discipline, and courage anything was possible. But things have changed. This is not the Oklahoma I remember. Over the last several years, I've seen fear, chaos, and division tear this nation apart through the efforts of communists and the apathy of Republicans in name only, who are either incapable or unwilling to do whatever it takes to protect our God-given rights. Election fraud, open borders, riots, unvetted Afghan refugees, and 300,000 plus acres of land sold to Chinese nationals has made Oklahoma the hub for human trafficking, the indoctrination of our children in critical race theory, sexual immorality, and abortion on demand. And finally, the unconstitutional and illegal vaccine mandate, leaving hundreds of thousands of our legal and law-abiding citizens jobless. Enough is enough, and the political theater must stop. We must have a governor who's willing to lead legislators and Oklahomans to fight back against this tyranny and aggressively address these issues head-on. As the next governor of the state of Oklahoma, I will, in the first 100 days, initiate a forensic audit with canvases to ensure election integrity, secure Oklahoma's borders, stop all state funding to school districts who train or teach CRT to faculty, staff, or students, and end all abortions. Oklahoma, let's put our faith back in God, believe that nothing is impossible, and make Oklahoma free again. Oklahoma is my home. This is where I was born and raised. It was here where I was given a chance at life, being conceived after my mother was violated at the age of 16. This is where I received my education and learned with hard work, discipline, and courage anything was possible. But things have changed. This is not the Oklahoma I remember. Over the last several years, I've seen fear, chaos, and division tear this nation apart through the efforts of communists and the apathy of Republicans in name only, who are either incapable or unwilling to do whatever it takes to protect our God-given rights. Election fraud, open borders, riots, unvetted Afghan refugees, and 300,000 plus acres of land sold to Chinese nationals has made Oklahoma the hub for human trafficking, the indoctrination of our children in critical race theory, sexual immorality, and abortion on demand. And finally, the unconstitutional and illegal vaccine mandate, leaving hundreds of thousands of our legal and law-abiding citizens jobless. Enough is enough, and the political theater must stop. We must have a governor who's willing to lead legislators and Oklahomans to fight back against this tyranny and aggressively address. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of our virtual town halls. We have got an amazing, inspirational, and extremely educational visit planned for tonight. And really, it's one that hits my heart near and dear. As many of you know my story, which I'll get into in a moment, this issue we're going to discuss right now is extremely in the news right now, and there are reasons for that. And I'm going to go into that hardcore in just a second by way of setting up and introducing our just amazing husband and wife guests tonight. So with that said, I really want you to understand that we are working hard out here for you to represent the people. The people's voice hasn't been heard, and many times we have got it completely off. And let me just take a moment to remind you that you can find out what's happening with our app. We've got the election just coming right up on us. It's sneaking up on us fast. We've got a lot of momentum, so we want to keep you really informed. You can go to our app right now, Sherwood 2022, and make sure you find out what's happening. You can find all our issues. You can support us there in every way. Download the app. You'll see my wife and I. You'll see my face on there. You'll see both of our faces in various sections of the app, and keep us in prayers because we have worked extremely hard. I was telling somebody today we've driven 10,000 miles in the last 2 months, been all around this state, and we met some just incredible, amazing, awesome patriots who really understand the need to step up right now, that we're on the edge of a tyrannical takeover in our country, and where we are, Oklahoma, is really one of the last best hopes. It's like an island that's sort of among itself. And along the idea of islands, I want to kind of set it up today with two things. Number one, we need to understand state sovereignty. We have lost our way so far on that without understanding the idea that the states and the people's rights are superior to the federal government. We wait on the federal government to do all this stuff. And if you look at Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution, you will clearly know that Congress has a whopping total of 18 powers. That is it. So all this gun control talk that they're talking about, it's irrelevant to the states. Most of the things they do are relevant to the states. And yet, we still fall prey for the deception that says big government's going to fix the problem. But folks, I encourage you to understand what I'm getting ready to say right now. Get your mind off the big government and get your mind onto local government. The local and state level is the way to save a republic. If we keep putting our money, effort, time, attention on the federal government, we are going to see an utter failure of this experiment called this democratic republic. Because the more we give federal government power, the more they will have control. And the problem with that is the idea of the power and control is this. Understand, please, that we are talking about the idea of recognition that the federal government cannot help you in regard to food, shelter, protection, sustenance. That's not what they're supposed to do. Are they supposed to protect the borders? Yes. Are they doing a good job at that? No. Are they supposed to be involved in your health? No. Education? No. Gun rights? No. That's not what they do. And yet we continue to fall for the trap of putting our money, effort, and time that direction. Folks, I'm not minimizing the importance of putting the right people into federal office. But I am telling you right now, if we get our minds and our attention focused in the wrong places, we'll get the same results that we've been getting. So please understand the local and state levels of government actually are the keys to saving America. I am all about the Making America Great Again movement. I really am. But folks, you cannot make America great until you make your family great. until you make your backyard great, until you make your neighborhood great, until you make your cities great. I want you to hear me with that. So another issue that's really been talked about today is the issue of abortion. As we know, the Justice Alito potential leak has came out regarding the opinion that was made in 1973, the Roe v. Wade decision, that we all know was a bad opinion. It was never a law, folks. So in those days, obviously, there were states that had laws that said you could not do abortions. But yet, unfortunately, when that opinion came, the law changed. They didn't change the law. We allowed the law to be changed because we didn't step up. If we as the states would have stepped up in 1973, we would not have this issue we have today. We've allowed the federal government and those people that are actually in the judicial branch that don't make laws. They just interpret them. It was never a law. And yet, unfortunately, here we are at this place in time still responding to an erroneous interpretation. Whether this Alito leak is true or not is irrelevant to the issue. It's always been a state issue. It always will be a state issue. Because we've let it go so long, my suspicion is that when it gets overturned, I believe it will, or not overturned, but actually appropriately interpreted, I believe at that time you're going to see some states actually increase abortions. That's the way the devil works, doesn't he? Because he takes something that's evil and makes it worse. So let us understand that we have got to get the idea in our heads that whether Roe v. Wade opinion is changed or not, the idea is the states could have always stopped and prevented abortions. Now, as I sit here before you, many of you know my story. I'm a product of a statutory rape at minimum, and my mother at the time chose to give me a chance at life. We need to continue to improve the adoption process and give those children, those lives. We need to protect those unborns with everything, but we need to protect those lives with everything and give them an opportunity to live. In Oklahoma, we've got politicians roaming around. We have 300 bills, 300 laws that supposedly restrict this idea of abortion. And we've got politicians that are flat out lying to you right now in my home state, telling you that we banned abortion. Absolutely nonsensical, not true. There are two bills they cite. Number one is House Bill 4327. It was signed into law about a month and a half ago. In a nutshell, in brief, this is an opportunity, much like the heartbeat bill in Texas, where someone can bring civil suit against those that perform an abortion. Up to a $10,000 fine they can be fined. So it's basically allowing citizens to sue these abortion providers. But that law does not prohibit abortions that are done in situations of rape or incest that are reported to the police. So in my case, potentially, it's still okay. That law also does not say anything about the idea of conception. So could it be done by an abortion pill? Yes, that's the point. And in this case, the woman cannot be sued under House Bill 4327. The woman that's actually allowing the abortion to be performed on her own child. Please understand that. The other bill that's out there is Senate Bill 612, which was signed into law a couple months before that, about 3 months ago. Both of these went out and said they banned abortion. But Senate Bill 612 makes it a felony for those that are convicted of performing or attempting to perform an abortion. But it does not say what felony it is, therefore leaving the door open to charge someone with something as minimal as a second-degree manslaughter. Could carry probation. Fine up to $100,000, but it doesn't say a minimum fine, so you could give the person 3 days of probation and $10 fine, and that would qualify. In that case, you cannot charge the lady. Hear me. You cannot charge the lady with the abortion. So in both opportunities, you're trying to really come after the providers of these things, but there's no consequence for the lady that's actually allowing this. What about the babies? What about the people? What about the unborn? And what about truth? Doesn't every life matter? Doesn't the Constitution protect all lives? Aren't all lives important in these United States of America? I believe so. I believe that everybody is arguing today that's saying it's a choice, guess what? You actually are an abolitionist because you want your opinion to be heard. And I appreciate that very much. And I honor you in your opinion. However, you are actually for life. Otherwise, your opinion doesn't matter. So understand that we all need to bond together. Abortion is an atrocity. It's America's Holocaust. It should not happen, not one time. I understand the emotions behind it. I'm not a lady. But hear me closely. Every single life matters and should be protected. With that said, let me just introduce my guest. I got to talk with Richard and Carrie Fischer a while back, and I was gripped by their story. It's a story that will inspire you. It's a story that will probably infuriate you in some aspects, but hopefully it's a story that will change you. We need to begin to understand there are people in this world that have effects of failed abortion attempts. Lives matter. You say, well, you can't see a life in the womb. Yes, there is life in that womb. Just because you can't see it, you can't experience that life, and it's not outside the womb, does not mean it's not alive. So with that said, let me just introduce my guests, Richard and Carrie Fischer. Guys, thanks for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it.
It's our pleasure to be here, Dr. Sherwood. Thank you so much for having us. Keep Carrie in your prayers. She's having a little bit of trouble tonight. It's hard for her to be here. But can you at least start off and share a little bit of your story, and then I'll continue it? You want me to go?
You can.
Do you want me to start it from the beginning?
Basically, I'm an abortion survivor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's, like I said, she's really struggling with there's a lot going on spiritually and whatever in other areas of our lives right now. So I'll just go ahead and take the lead and share her part of it. If she wants to chime in at some point, we'll let her do that.
Absolutely.
But basically, back in 1968, her mom turned up pregnant. It was a man she was dating. She brought it to him, and he said, "I'm out of here." He had not told her that he had already had a family, and he was in the middle of a divorce. It wasn't finalized yet. He took off, left her high and dry with 2 children from another marriage already, and she felt hopeless. She felt like she had no choice at that point. And so she decided after a while to borrow money from a family member, drive herself to a little clinic in Luling, Texas, and have an abortion procedure done. She thought it was all taken care of, had no reason to doubt that, but a month later she realized she was still pregnant. And at that point, she had a change of heart and decided she'd trust God to make the way for her to care for her growing family. And of course, she was able to do that. Obviously, she wouldn't be here otherwise. So Carrie was 3 months gestation at the time. She stayed in utero for the entire duration of the pregnancy. And then we believe the facial deformity comes from the fact that, according to her mom's doctor, the one who delivered Carrie via C-section, for some reason, because her mom's cervix wasn't opening quickly enough, they decided instead of doing an emergency C-section right away, they waited for 36 hours after her water broke. During that time, Carrie's face was resting on her mom's unprotected pelvic bone and caused the facial paralysis and the deafness in the left ear, partial deafness in the right, the drooping face on this side, and the eye issues. She was born with a club foot as well, which was surgically corrected. So the way things went, the way Carrie learned about all this is you want to take over?
Yeah, the way I learned about it is through nightmares. I had nightmares. And then somebody in my family told me that my mother didn't want me, my father didn't want me, and my mother tried to kill me. And so I sat on that for several years, and finally asked my mother, okay, now here's this. I'm having nightmares, and then this person tells me this. What's going on? And that's the point where my mother writes down and says, I tried to abort you because this was what was going on. And my first reaction is, it's not natural. Mothers don't kill their kids. Mothers are supposed to protect their kids. You know, you just don't want to kill your kid. And it took me a little while to get over the initial shock. But then I had an empathy for her and realizing her situation, and had she not having anybody there, had it been in the area that we're in, she would have had somebody there with her. But so the anyway from there I was able to forgive her, and you know, we were friends throughout my life. And but it was still her. It was still very hard for her to deal with the guilt, especially when I got bullied because of how I look. You know, my mom still had a hard time with that, and took her years and years to forgive herself for that. And so, but that's my story. Because I was bullied most all my life, I ended up in my early 30s, 30 or earlier, and 30, and said, I can't take this anymore. I'm done. And I was gonna take swallow a bottle of wine and take a bottle of pills. And I was gonna lay down, go to sleep, and that was it. I was done. God, I don't want to live anymore. And so, as God would have other plans, I woke up the next morning with no whatever. You never know what I did the night before. And that's when I knew God wanted me alive to help other women in similar situations as my mom.
Mm-hmm. And the nightmares too. One of the things she didn't share was that the nightmares were specifically of a baby fighting for her life in her mother's womb. And of course, at 5 years old, when these nightmares started, she had no idea what a womb was, you know? So God was showing her over these 8 years, 8-year time frame, until she finally sat her mom down and asked what was going on, you know, what had actually happened. And her mom confessing it just made it all the more understandable at that point.
Well, we believe that one of the reasons I possibly survived too, apart from God, was that there was a twin that pushed me out of the way and took the fall.
Yeah. That's because she had always believed that she had a twin brother or sister somewhere, but she could never explain why. And then when her mom confessed this to her, it was like, oh, that might be why, you know? So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, this, you know, you guys, obviously you've been through a lot. And Carrie, I want to commend you. You're a hero for sharing your story.
You're a hero for sharing your story.
I really want to honor you in that. And I really want people to hear my heart with this. It's nothing short of heartbreaking to hear the story and to hear about the nightmares that you had. And I want people to keep in mind, this is 1968, still 5 years prior to Roe v. Wade. Mm-hmm. So your situation is really a situation that has been magnified over and above since 1973. The millions and millions of lives that have had that happen to them, the children in the womb that could have that same feeling, sensation, experience of fighting for your life, which I think people need to hear this. That's why I was so passionate about bringing you guys on here. Have you been able to help women change their hearts regarding abortion?
Yes, I know of at least 2 or 3 babies that my story has saved.
I'm sure there's more.
There's probably more, but I only know of 2 or 3.
Carrie, two questions. Number one, how did you forgive your mom? That's number one.
Did you forgive your mom?
Oh, how did I forgive her? I can only accredit it to the grace of God.
Amen.
Because I was pretty mad. I mean, hey, you tried to kill me? For real? No. So I accredit it to the grace of God and the love that God put in me for her.
And the second question I've got is this. How does it make you feel right now that you survived that murder attempt, let's call it for what it is, and then are able to see a woman change her mind and change their heart, what does that do to your heart at that point?
You saying how does it make you feel now that your story can change people's minds?
It really it makes it all worthwhile to share the story. That's why I do it. It helps the changing women's minds, and when it does, it's just like, thank you, Lord.
Mm-hmm.
It's a life change.
Yeah, and to also help other women, the women who made the wrong choice.
Yeah.
She's got a real heart for the post-abortive and wants to bring healing to them as well.
Like when the child addicted, from the women, to let them know, okay, like I forgave my mother, I can stand in for that child and say, your child forgives you and loves you.
Yeah. And if you repent and come to the Lord, and you'll see them again.
Yeah.
Now, how do people, those of you that are monitoring Facebook, I want you to seriously share this story. I want you to begin to hit share right now to everybody you know, tag people, share the story. And I want us to set a record of sharing this story right now, folks. It's important. Anybody that's had an abortion, considered an abortion, is confused about the issue. I want you to share this story right now on Facebook Live. So, folks, hear my heart with that. Richard Carrie, I want to make sure I plug your website a couple of times here. So, what is your website? How can people reach you?
Well, we don't actually have a website right now, but we are on Facebook. So maybe you can, tag our Facebook page. We do have a Facebook group.
Okay.
It's called Testimonies for Life. That's plural, Testimonies for Life. I'm trying to remember what the exact link is to it, but I can share that with you too, and we can get that to your audience. Email. You can contact us via email at rcfischer, FISCHER, the number 5, W20 at Gmail.
Okay, I'm going to make sure I repeat this, and we'll go ahead and put this in the feed. Facebook group, Testimonies for Life. Email, rcfischer, FISCHER, the number 5, W20 at Gmail.
Correct. And if you want a phone number, I can give you that as well.
Yeah, I think we'll just stay with the Facebook.
Okay, that's fine.
You never know who's going to call,
True,
right?
true. Yeah. I would field the calls, but I'm not going to give them her number. But that's fine. We don't have to.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, folks, if you want to get a hold of the Fischers, you can get a hold of us, and we will be glad to speak with you. And obviously, we'll pass on, if you let us kind of vet that for you, we'll pass on people that need to talk to you.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. I want to hear, and I think it's very important, about you guys' meeting and love story.
Okay. Well, that's where I'll take over. This is obviously very near and dear to my heart. But my late wife, BJ, had passed away 6 months earlier. And one of my Facebook friends in one of the northern states, I can't remember her name or what state she was from, but we were just sharing back and forth with each other about places we'd been to and wanted to go to again, or places we'd want to go to that we hadn't been to yet. We were sharing pictures. And she sent me this one picture, and I said, "Where is that? I got to go. I saw that in a dream 18 years ago." And she said, "It's Hamilton Pool in Austin, Texas." And I said, "Okay, wow, this is incredible. I don't know what God's got in store for me, but it's got to be something pretty special." If he showed it to me 18 years before, and 18 years before was right along the time when my late wife and I were just getting together. So the timing was interesting. But so anyway, it took 2 months before I was able to make it to Hamilton Pool. I hadn't worked a whole lot, and finances were tight and whatever, but the Lord worked it out. Through some very generous folks. That one guy put up a hotel room for me for a week and a half, and I ended up selling my wife's car, and that gave me some extra money. And so I traveled to Hamilton Pool, visited the location twice, Let me back up a little bit. The dream that I had, what I saw was that I was inside this cave, and I was looking out onto this unbelievably beautiful emerald green water, emerald green sunrise coming up, and there was a rock submerged under the water just below the surface that looked like a finger pointing out in the direction of the sunrise. And so I knew when I saw the picture of this place that I needed to go and I needed to stand in that cave and I needed to look in that direction. And there was something in that direction. So when I got in the cave and looked in that direction, the beach to Hamilton Pool was right there. And of course, it was pretty much emerald green water as well, if you've ever been there. And but beyond the beach, I had noticed a sign on the way in that if you went another 0.6 of a mile, there was a river. And so I decided to walk down to the river. And just absolutely beautiful. Again, emerald green water, fairly shallow, just a really nice little swimming hole. At that point, I had 2 plastic recorder flutes that I would play and sing to the Lord and whatever on. And so I just took those out into the water. I went behind a rock and I just had some time with the Lord. And it was like a Psalm 23 experience, you know, walking through the valley of the shadow of death. And yet here he's leading me beside quiet waters and restoring my soul. And so that was the main thing there that he wanted me to get, was to have my soul restored. But there was a reason for restoring my soul, and that was her. And so as the Lord would have it, sometime after my second visit to Hamilton Pool, I was on Facebook. I was on a mutual friend of Carrie's and mine Facebook page, pro-life Facebook page. You may know her. Her name's Judah Myers. Very, very avid pro-lifer. And she was actually her mom was gang raped by 8 men, and that's how she came into the world. So she recently retired from her pro-life ministry. But in any case, so while I was on her page, I came across Carrie's profile picture. And what drew me to her picture was the previous 2 weeks, the Lord had been reminding me of an aspect of a painting that had come into my life when my mom passed away in 2003. And it's a major, I don't have time to share it today, obviously. There's just a major thing that happened there as well. But this painting that came in through that miracle there was an aspect of that was showing me that I would one day become one with somebody with a facial deformity. And so I saw her picture and I was like, okay, Lord, who is this woman? And so I started asking her questions and found out she was an abortion survivor. And I only knew of Gianna Jessen at that point. I didn't know there were anybody else. And I was already trying to start a pro-life ministry at the time. I was like, really? I need to look more into this. So we talked more. I found out in 42 years, she'd never been asked on a date because of the way she looked. Wow. And I said, that's just pure wrong. You know, nobody's giving her the time of day, looking to see what her heart's like, which is the most important thing. I mean, physical is nice, but, you know, if you have somebody that's a raving beauty, but yet her heart is trash, you know, it's not worth it. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so we talked for a few days. I prayed about it before I asked her out and felt like the Lord wanted me to, and she accepted. We ended up double dating at a restaurant called Asian City. In fact, our anniversary of our first date 11 years ago was just this past 16th on the weekend.
Yay.
And yay. And so, you know, by the end of the first date, we knew we were supposed to be married, much to her mother's chagrin at the time. You know, she was very, very protective, understandably so, given what she'd tried to do to her daughter. She had, you know, after the change of heart, she was just overly protective of her daughter. And that eventually changed. She eventually warmed up to me, but it wasn't until the day of the wedding. It was actually during the wedding. She saw us dancing together and she saw the love and she said, okay, I see it. I'm good with this. You know, I don't want you to be gone from my house. She'd lived with her all her life. But, you know, I'm okay with this. And, you know, God worked it out. And unfortunately, she just passed away this past August.
Well, it'll be a year in August.
A year in August. This past
August
August
31st.
31st, she passed away. But she was Carrie's biggest cheerleader. And you want to get your pom-poms?
Yeah, for sure.
Can you get them real quick? I'll let you just do this little part here.
Hey.
Yeah, she really. What do you say to people about the pom-poms?
No, I always tell people when I share my story now, because I would say, now, I know what my mother's doing up there in heaven. I know she's chatting it up with all the apostles and all the people up there. She's looking down. You know my daughter? That's my miracle daughter. She's up there telling my story even in heaven.
Yeah.
I love it. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. And of course, we've got all the photos. We tried to put together a slideshow, as you know, and we couldn't get it to work online here, but we can share that offline with people if they want. We've got a link to it. So.
Well, Richard, when you guys, how long you guys been married, by the way, now?
It'll be 11 years, September 22nd.
Yeah.
Well, happy early anniversary to you.
Thank you.
Think that's amazing. So, what is you guys' life and ministry like right now?
Well, we are, I believe, on the cusp of a big growth spurt in our ministry. And we've been endeavoring to prepare for that as well through, we want to support our own ministry as much as possible. We've put together a graphics design and printing business to do that with. And, we're not only exclusively focusing on pro-life, but we obviously don't want to do certain things. We don't want to promote certain activities and whatever, but, we're open to print and design for pretty much anything that's moral and legal. But as far as the ministry is concerned, there's several opportunities coming up. We've got another online opportunity. What day is that? Tuesday? I think it's Tuesday at 11:30. I think there's a Catholic woman who's starting a podcast, and she wants us to be on the show. She's just got, and haven't worked out the details yet, but she's just gotten an invitation to a potential speaking engagement with the Eagle Forum up in Nashville. I suspect that will be a traveling situation. What's the other one? Oh yeah. She was just also invited to share her testimony at an upcoming abortion survivors retreat, the Abortion Survivors Network. She's going to be sharing a short version of her testimony there in mid-July. So, we've got a few miscellaneous things that we have long-term visions for related to the ministry. We want to have something called the International Memorial for the Unborn. I've got a major vision for that, too detailed to describe now. What are the other? What about your coat closet?
On my coat closet and conferences for women.
Why don't you speak about that a little bit?
Like, I have a vision to do a clothes closet ministry, like for me, that somebody helped me when I was trying to look nice. And I want to do the same for other women. I want to have conferences for women that are struggling with self-esteem issues like I was, and help them establish who they are in Christ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Carrie, right now, you got a man there that just loves you. I can see it. I can feel it. How do you feel right now about your purpose in life, and where do you see your life going from this moment forward?
Did you hear him? How do you feel about your purpose in life and where you're going?
I feel good. I think God got me on the track He wants me to be going on.
Yeah. Oh, what about what you're studying for right now?
I'm actually studying to become a mental health coach too.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, she passed her first course already. Would you get almost got an A, not quite. 89 point something. Yeah, so she almost got an A on that course, and she's
almost finished with the technical.
And there's one more course after that.
Three courses.
Yeah, 3 total. So she's doing really well on that. And
let me ask you this: going back to the time where you're starting to have these dreams, a lot of people, and I think it would be helpful. I think it would be helpful for people to be able to hear from you what it's like to be inside a mom's womb and be struggling to fight for your life.
Mm-hmm.
tend to detach ourselves. We tend to remove reality from something we don't see. You know, it's just a fetus. It's not alive. Do you mind totally, if you're comfortable, sharing a little bit for our audience about those dreams and what's that like from your perspective?
Well, the dreams were, like I said, I was young, so the dreams were scary for me. Because I could literally hear the baby screaming, and I could feel the pain that baby was in. And so it was terrifying for me as a young kid to be going through these things. That in reality, that's what it's like. These babies in the womb, they're suffering, they're screaming, they're in pain, they're dying, because of the abortion. And I felt that firsthand.
Yeah, and it may not be an actual verbal voice. It's like the silent scream that we've seen videos of. Yeah. That I believe it was a saline abortion that they showed on camera one time years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And they are feeling pain in most cases. I mean, some of them maybe the very early stages ones, maybe not, but most of them are feeling pain. They have a heartbeat. We sadly lost 2 children ourselves through miscarriage. And we saw we got a sonogram of our firstborn, or first miscarriage at 6 weeks when he was still healthy. Perfect 120 beat per minute heartbeat. The doctor said it's just perfect. We heard it, we saw it. We've got the video. We've got it on our YouTube channel. We look back on it every once in a while. And she's only now getting to the place where she can actually do that. But do I have time to share a little bit more about them? Because the miscarriage was a very turning point in our lives too. Is there enough time to share on that?
Yeah.
Okay. We were, I guess it must have been about 7 months along in our marriage, and she tested positive, pregnant, and we were, of course, very overjoyed. And I had been married twice previously, never gotten pregnant with either wife. And so this was a total surprise and a very delightful one. And we went to that 6-week sonogram. And in fact, the day we went to that sonogram and saw all that, we actually met for the first time another abortion survivor, Terry LaPointe, who lives in Alabama, I believe.
Yeah.
And so she was rejoicing with us, of course, at that time. And
shortly after.
Yeah, it was about 4 weeks later, after the 6-week sonogram, that all of a sudden I was looking at her one day and I just felt she wasn't pregnant anymore. I was like, I don't want to say anything. I didn't say anything. I didn't tell her until after the fact about it. But there were some other circumstances behind the scenes that seemed to be pointing to this. She doesn't remember this herself, but leading up to that time when I didn't see her pregnant anymore, she doesn't have normal or tears in this left eye. Mm-hmm. But before that miscarriage happened, one day there was 3 tears, the next day there were 2, and then the next day there was 1, and then the next day she miscarried. And
it was on my 43rd.
And it was on her 43rd birthday too.
Yeah.
Wow. So, needless to say, she's been through quite a bit. But on the positive side of that, the day after she almost bled to death. Yeah. Her blood pressure was down to 60/40. And she was still conscious too, which surprised me. It surprised the doctors. They were just like, how is she still conscious? But a couple hours later, she walked out. They didn't even wheelchair her out. I was just amazed. Normally, when you come out of the hospital, they wheelchair you. She walked out under her own power after all this. And as we decided, she wanted to go to a gazebo that she knew was behind the library near where we lived in Tennessee at the time, in the Knoxville area, and just to get our heads together, pray, and see what's going on. And so we did that. And while we were there, the Lord gave her 2 visions. The first vision was of an angel taking the infant child to Jesus. And then the next vision was of it, the child at about 2 years old, sitting in Jesus' lap in the clouds with this beautiful white dove flying in the background. And, that would have been enough, but as the Lord would have it, later on, she was on Facebook and she came across a painting by an artist by the name of Danny Halbone, incredible Christian artist. I mean, unbelievable work. And it was the exact image she'd seen in that second vision of our child sitting in the lap of Jesus.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, needless to say, that's a great treasure that we have. And
well, I want people to connect with you. And folks, I'm serious. You all that are on Facebook right now listening. I don't know about you, but knowing this dear sweet couple, Richard and Carrie Fischer, how could you not? I mean, how could you not have a brand new appreciation, understanding for the value of life? How could you not? So I'm asking you right now to share this message far and wide. We have got to stop the atrocity of abortion. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do about it here in just a couple moments. You guys need to know Richard and Carrie. And I'll remind you, our dear friends across Oklahoma and across the nation are listening, what we're going to do as well. You guys have heard me say it many times, but I'm going to say it one more time. Make sure you connect with this dear couple at Testimonies for Life on Facebook. That's their Facebook group. And then Richard's been so kind to give out their email, R.C. Fischer, RCFISCHER, the number 5, W20@gmail.com. And I want you to reach out to them if you have questions. Perhaps you might see them as being a ministry opportunity that you want to use. Reach out to them. If you need them for printing, reach out to them. And if you want to talk to them and want their number, you reach out to us, and we'll make sure they're not calls, right?
okay, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, you know, from our standpoint, and I think it's important. You know, Carrie, there's women out there, everywhere, that have been confused, deceived, and maybe have committed the unthinkable of allowing their child to be murdered. There's women out there that are completely okay with the idea of murdering young people, the unborn. And there's women out there that have been so disappointed with losing children through miscarriages. Carrie, you got the floor. What would you say to those women right now that are hurting, wounded? How would you help them right now?
Well, if they're out there contemplating abortion, I know if my mother was still here, she would say, please don't do it. There are options out there. There is help out there. You are not alone. Someone will help you, you know, and decide you don't want to live with a lifetime of guilt and regret and shame that she had lived with, and you just don't want to live with that. Abortion hurts women, and if you don't, I would just say don't do it. Please don't do it. Choose life for that baby. And if you can't give that child for adoption. Give somebody else a chance to love that child. Let that child live.
Yeah, we're still hoping and praying that even though we've not been able to have our own children, we're still hoping to adopt at some point, but we've got to get more financially stable to be able to do that. So,
well, and I tell you guys are truly inspiring, remarkable, amazing people. And from my wife and I standpoint, we love you dearly and just want you to know that. And just we're grateful.
Well, maybe one day we'll be able to meet in person and get to meet your wife too.
Yeah.
We will arrange that, and just can't wait to give you guys a big old hug just to appreciate you. And just tell you how much we love you and how much you've inspired, us just being able to have the small opportunity to hear your story. And, folks, as we wrap up our broadcast, I want you to hear my heart with this. Share this thing. Reach out to the Fischers. We'll make sure to put in this feed both their Facebook group and their email. If you got questions, you're hurting out there, and you need someone to talk to that's been there, done that, reach out to the Fishers. You're talking about someone that survived an abortion attempt at 3 months. I mean, wow. Who said life is not viable? Who said life is not important? God says in Jeremiah 1:5, I knew you before you were created in your mother's womb. And because of that, we can truly say that life, all life, the concept of life, begins in God before it's ever conceived on earth. No life's forgotten in the eyes of God, as evidenced by even the miscarriage they're talking about, seeing their own child. And I totally believe that. Every life is counted by God. No life's forgotten by God. And every life is held in the hands of God, especially the preborn that have not had a chance to experience life. When we get elected as your next governor of Oklahoma, we're going to stop abortion. We're going to quit playing games. We're going to quit playing political, shifting the ball under the cups. We're going to quit doing the things that are just getting views and getting votes. And we're going to do it right, regardless. And we don't care who comes against that, because it's the right thing to do. You and I, the people of Oklahoma, are going to step up and stand up, and our voices are going to be heard. And just like we did back in 2018, you're going to put a bill, the legislators are going to put a bill on my desk that says abortion is murder. And it has the same state statute penalties as murder accordingly. And we will sign that thing into law, and it will become the law of the land of the sovereign state of Oklahoma. And we will hold our ground, we will hold our line. Because when we hold our line and hold the ground, God will defend us, because it's violation of God's law to continue to have these abortions. So we will do that. We will stand up, and we will end this holocaust of abortion, because that's exactly what it is. And folks, just know that my wife and I love you dearly. So on behalf of my wife, Dr. Michelle, and I, we appreciate you. We appreciate all your support for us during this campaign. Man, we couldn't do it without you. We appreciate people like Richard and Carrie Fischer, who have the guts, the determination to expose themselves to people, to inspire other people. Folks, that's called courage. And that's called courage and character put together, which brings about influence in this nation. So along with myself and I, we salute them. And I know you do too. I want you to really reach out to them. And I want to thank you for joining us on this broadcast.
It's been our pleasure and our honor.
Give your wife a hug for me.
You know, we're going to give a big old hug for you guys. And we appreciate you all. And ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you joining us tonight. So we will look forward to seeing you again at our next live event or virtual town hall like this. And we love you very much.
Yeah.
All right. Love you too. God bless.
God bless.
We have up is down, left is right, bad is good, confusion. We have up is down, left is right, bad is good, confusion. And God is not the author of confusion.
God wants to bless America, but it starts with His people first, repenting and the ending of sin.
We have been in ministry the last 20 years. It was in prayer that the Lord began to convict me to run for office. And so I'm excited about Dr. Sherwood stepping up to the plate.
This is a man after God's own heart, who will not compromise with the devil.
He's bold, he's courageous.
I'm Nick Vujicic.
Warren Hamilton.
I'm Jake Merrick,
And I endorse
Enthusiastically,
Dr. Mark Sherwood
as governor of Oklahoma.
The ending of slavery happened with total abolishing of it. We must see this as well for abortion. It's America's Holocaust.
We still have abortions in Oklahoma. How can you be pro-life and have one abortion? Why not stop it right now? And I make a commitment right now that I'm going to do everything I can to completely abolish abortion in the state of Oklahoma within the first 30 days of office.
vaccine mandates that are being rolled out right now are entirely unconstitutional and unbiblical. Every state that's a member of these United States, that's a member of our union, said we'll abide by the Constitution. That's why we don't tinker with it too much.
So I believe the word mandate doesn't equate to law. I am a big believer in the 10th Amendment, and that means state sovereignty. I would propose that every single business owner in Oklahoma that's affected by that ridiculous mandate push back and say no, because they don't own you. The federal government does not own you. We need to own that amendment, understand what it is, and not be afraid to push back.
We have to understand where critical race theory came from. Obviously, it comes from the Marxist handbook. And if we preach this and promote this, we end up a Marxist nation. It is not social justice. It is not anti-racism. It's actually racism in its purest form. The very thing Martin Luther King Jr. talked about, we're not going to allow this to be taught where we judge by the color of our skin.
There's one race. It's called the human race. I'm not going to apologize for being white. I'm not even white. I don't even know what I am. Kids in school need to be taught how to live life. Right now, we're teaching them theories about how to hate. That's not education, that's brainwashing. We will not do that under my administration. We will fine every school that does that, and if they don't like it, they can take their education and find another state that will accept that nonsense. People all need to be healed. Our state needs to be healed, our land needs to be healed, the economy needs to be healed, and our confidence needs to be healed. Our hope needs to be restored. God has gifted us as healers. We know that we're called to not just heal people individually like we do, but we know now we're called to heal a group of people called the state of Oklahoma. My name is Mark Sherwood, and I'm running for governor of the state of Oklahoma.